okay. I really want to get there and go there and get it over with.
All right, real good.
I kind of know what it's about, and it's something that's really small.
That was Breezy thinking he was facing just a small charge, but it wasn't small at all. He's just been hit with a massive RICO sentence so heavy, he might never walk free again. And word is, Breezy isn't planning to go down alone. He's already making moves to cut his time by snitching on some big names. I've got the full story. The arrest that changed everything. The morning of August 27, 2025, started like any other for Antonio Valentino King, better known to the world as 600 Breezy. The Chicago drill rapper was driving through Wisconsin when what should have been a routine traffic stop turned into the moment that would potentially end his career forever. At around 7:30 a.m., authorities discovered an active extradition warrant tied to Pennsylvania during the stop. And just like that, one of drill music's most authentic voices found himself in custody, facing charges that could mean he'd never walk free again. This wasn't 600 Breezy's first encounter with the law. Far from it. Born in Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood, he had been navigating the dangerous intersection of street life and rap fame for over a decade. His affiliation with the Black Disciples, specifically the 600 faction, had been central to both his identity and his legal troubles, placing him squarely in the middle of Chicago's most violent gang conflicts. The arrest sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community, but for those who had been following 600 Breezy's turbulent journey, it wasn't entirely surprising. Court documents indicate he was booked and held without bail, a clear sign that whatever charges awaited him in Pennsylvania were serious enough to warrant immediate detention. What made this arrest particularly ominous was the speculation surrounding the nature of the charges. Online speculation, particularly on platforms like Reddit's Curicology subreddit, suggests potential ties to a state-level RICO investigation. RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is the federal government's most powerful weapon against organized crime, and when it's deployed against rappers, it usually means prosecutors believe they can prove the artist was part of a criminal enterprise. The court appearance that followed painted a picture of a man who seemed resigned to his fate.
You know, I don't know. I don't know what the elements are of the various offenses in Pennsylvania. If you're unsure of that and want to look into that a little bit further before you make decisions here, I'd be happy to continue this for a day or two, or...
That's okay. I really want to get there and go there and get it over with.
All right, real good.
I kind of know what it's about, and it's something that's really small.
But his dismissive characterization of the charges as something small seemed at odds with the gravity of the situation. After all, small matters don't typically result in extradition warrants and being held without bail.
No, that's...
I know that.
Yeah, you don't want to get into the facts of it because somehow it could potentially get used against you later on.
The judge's caution about not discussing the facts because they could potentially get used against you later on revealed the serious nature of what 600 Breezy was facing despite his casual dismissal. This arrest represented the culmination of a pattern of escalating legal troubles that had followed Breezy throughout his career. His legal history dates back to 2012 when he was arrested in Waterloo, Iowa for possession of crack cocaine with intent to deliver during a multi-agency drug enforcement operation. That initial arrest set in motion a series of probation violations and subsequent incarcerations that would plague him for years. In 2017, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for violating his probation by traveling without permission to perform at venues in Houston and Los Angeles and for testing positive for marijuana. Though he served only 18 months thanks to legal intervention, the pattern was clear. 600 Breezy couldn't stay out of trouble with the law. His feuds with other rappers had also created a trail of potentially incriminating evidence. The most significant was his ongoing conflict with Tekashi 6ix9ine, which escalated to dangerous levels when 6ix9ine disrespected deceased Chicago rappers.
You go and die. You gon' die. And that's all I'm saying. I'm gonna go to jail respectfully. I'm gonna go to jail respectfully. When I see you respectfully, I'm not me.
Breezy wasn't playing around. He made it crystal clear that this wasn't just internet talk.
And you gotta move around with security because you a... You gotta move around with security because you a hoe. You gotta move around security. Real streets don't move and take security guards. You gonna die.
This wasn't just typical rap beef. It was the kind of public threat that law enforcement agencies monitor closely, especially when directed at a known federal informant like 6ix9ine. The feud eventually led to 600 Breezy's arrest in December 2021 for making terroristic threats, serving as a perfect example of how his online persona created real-world legal consequences. The threats he made weren't just recorded by fans. They were preserved as evidence that prosecutors could later use to establish patterns of criminal behavior in association with violent criminal enterprises. The timing of his August 2025 arrest was particularly ironic. Just months before, Breezy had been making headlines for condemning a mass shooting at Chicago rapper Mellow Bucks's mixtape release party, which left 4 dead and 15 injured. He had used his platform to call out the senseless violence, seemingly positioning himself as a voice of reason in a scene often criticized for glorifying brutality. Yet here he was, potentially facing charges that could be connected to the very world he had been trying to distance himself from. The arrest also highlighted the ongoing tensions within Chicago's drill scene, particularly the rivalry between different factions. The situation became even more complicated when fellow Chicago rapper Lil Zay Osama took to social media to mock Breezy's predicament, writing, "Breezo, the streets ain't for you." The media coverage of his arrest revealed just how significant this moment was for the drill music community.
600 Breezy has been hit with a state RICO charge, man. He started to explain it on camera to the judge, but the judge said halt, and he waived his extradition, so he will be going to Pennsylvania to fight this RICO charge.
The disconnect between Breezy's casual attitude and the potential severity of RICO charges became a focal point of discussion.
There's something small, there's something minor. Hey, ain't nothing small or minor about no RICO, man. See,
this observation perfectly captured the disconnect between Breezy's public minimization of the charges and the potential severity of what he was actually facing.
So to go down to another state and cause havoc, or however he called this RICO, is insane, man. Hey, I damn near spit out my coffee, man, when the judge said, I was drinking some Dunkin' Donuts, man, and the judge said a state RICO, I damn near spit out my coffee, man.
RICO charges aren't handed out lightly. They represent the government's belief that they can prove a pattern of criminal activity spanning multiple offenses and potentially multiple defendants. The Wisconsin arrest represented more than just another legal setback for 600 Breezy. It potentially marked the beginning of the end of his career as a free man. With his history of legal troubles, including previous incarcerations in Iowa and other states, this arrest carried the weight of a pattern that prosecutors love to use to establish criminal intent and ongoing participation in illegal activities. What made the situation even more precarious was the sealed nature of the Pennsylvania warrant. Without knowing the specific charges, Breezy's legal team would be walking into court blind, unable to prepare a proper defense until they arrived in Pennsylvania and the charges were unsealed. This uncertainty only added to the gravity of the situation and the speculation about what exactly the government believed they could prove against one of Chicago's most prominent drill rappers. As we delve deeper into 600 Breezy's story, it becomes clear that this arrest wasn't an isolated incident, but rather the inevitable conclusion of a life lived on the edge between fame and infamy, between artistic expression and criminal liability. The dangerous game of drill music fame. To understand how 600 Breezy found himself facing potentially life-altering charges in Pennsylvania, we need to examine the dangerous world he navigated as one of Chicago's most authentic drill rappers. This wasn't just about making music. It was about surviving in an environment where artistic credibility often came at the cost of legal jeopardy, and where the line between entertainment and evidence became increasingly blurred. Born on April 16, 1991, this young king came up in the most treacherous parts of Chi-Town, where survival wasn't guaranteed and making it past 21 was considered a blessing. Growing up in areas associated with the Black Disciple Street gang, particularly the 600 set, little Antonio was surrounded by the kind of street politics that would shape his entire worldview. We're talking about the neighborhoods where the sound of gunshots was more common than ice cream trucks, where loyalty meant everything and snitching could get you smoked. The 600 block wasn't just some set Breezy claimed for clout. This was his family, his protection, his identity. The Black Disciples, and specifically that 600 faction, became his everything. These wasn't just some homeboys he hung with, these were his day ones, the soldiers he'd ride or die with, the brothers who'd have his back when the ops came sliding through. But like so many, Breezy's come-up story is painted with tragedy. His homie and fellow Black Disciples member Lay Capone, a rising drill rapper, got his wig split in 2013 at just 17 years old. Losing LA wasn't just losing a friend, it was like losing a brother, and it lit a fire under Breezy that would push him to take this rap game seriously. He wasn't just spitting bars for fun anymore, he was carrying the torch for his fallen soldier, repping the 600 with every breath. When Breezy dropped Don't Get Smoked in 2015, that track wasn't just music, it was a street anthem, a battle cry from the trenches. The song carried that raw, uncut energy that only comes from somebody who really lived what they were rapping about. This wasn't no studio gangster trying to sound tough. This was the real McCoy, straight from the belly of the beast, and the streets felt that authenticity. But check this, sometimes when you're grinding in the hood, the universe throws you a curveball that changes everything. Drake, the Sixth God himself, played Don't Get Smoked on OVO Sound Radio in September 2015. Now imagine being a young cat from the 600 block just trying to make something shake, and suddenly the biggest rapper in the world is putting your music on blast to millions of listeners. That's not just a cosign, that's validation from the mountaintop. The relationship that grew between Drake and Breezy wasn't your typical industry politics. This was some real recognized, real type connection. When Breezy talks about how Drake really rocks with him, you can hear the genuine respect in his voice.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, understand, like, think, you know, like how to understand how I just my voice end up on this album, because Drake really with me like that.
See, Drake didn't just throw Breezy a bone for the cameras. This cat was really showing love behind the scenes, putting in work for his day one from Chicago.
Like a lot of for me behind the scenes, you know, like I don't really, he make me want to care about the rap shit. I don't care about this.
But Breezy understood something that a lot of young cats from the hood don't get when they're trying to make moves in the music industry. He knew he couldn't just be another clout chaser trying to ride somebody else's wave. The respect was mutual because Breezy kept it authentic. He understood that Chicago drill culture was something special, something that couldn't be faked.
And turn up, he got a good fan base, like especially where he from. Like they riot for that man, so tell him you know, he ain't like, we come from Chicago where this, we started from rap beef. They just get on, come right out of this rap beef. Really, they homies really dying for this shit, all that shit. Real good though.
Drake's outreach was notable because it was unsolicited. Breezy emphasized that he didn't ask for Drake's attention or a feature, which earned him mad respect from the Toronto legend. This wasn't no clout-chasing situation. This was authentic street-to-street recognition, and Drake respected that Breezy wasn't trying to use their connection to get put on. But even as their friendship deepened, Breezy was always aware that the streets were still watching, still calling. This is where the story starts to get complicated because Breezy's loyalty to his people and his understanding of street politics would eventually put him at odds with Drake's more diplomatic approach to handling beef.
And anytime I asked my homie, can I get on somebody, he always say no, and this time he just gave me a shrug, like it's whatever, because he tweaked. So that's all I need.
The ultimate manifestation of their bond came in 2017 when Breezy provided a spoken word drop at the end of Drake's track Lose You on the More Life project. Getting your voice on a Drake album isn't just a feature. That's like getting blessed by the rap gods themselves, and it put Breezy's name in living rooms and car speakers across the globe. But here's where the story takes a left turn that'll have you shaking your head. While Breezy was building his reputation and connecting with one of the biggest artists on the planet, the system was building a case that would eventually bring him down. See, the game is rigged from the jump when you come from where Breezy came from, and success just makes you a bigger target. Way back in 2012, when Breezy was just 21 and still learning the ropes, the Tri-County Drug Enforcement Task Force, in collaboration with the Waterloo Police Department's Tactical Unit, executed search warrants at 6 residences in the Waterloo area. Antonio Valentino King was arrested at 1013 W. Mullen Avenue, Waterloo, Iowa, and charged with possession with intent to deliver crack cocaine. Now, getting caught with work is one thing, but getting caught with enough work that they think you're pushing it is a whole different ballgame. This wasn't just a possession charge. This was the kind of beef that could put you away for a decade or more. But Breezy caught a break that many cats from his situation don't get. King pleaded guilty to the charge and was sentenced to a 10-year prison sentence, which was suspended in favor of 5 years of probation. The probation was transferred to Illinois, where he was staying, allowing him to build his career while staying out of the pen. At the time, this seemed like divine intervention, a chance to flip his life around and chase his dreams without looking over his shoulder. But anybody who's been in the system knows that probation isn't freedom, it's just a longer leash. And when you're a young cat from the hood trying to make moves in the music industry, that leash can feel pretty damn short. In early 2017, with just 3 months left on his 5-year probation sentence, Iowa corrections officials alleged that King had violated the terms of his probation. What were these violations that would threaten to derail everything Breezy had built? King traveled out of Illinois without permission to perform at music venues, specifically at the Iva Center in Houston, Texas in October 2016, and Lure in Los Angeles, California in December 2016. Social media posts also allegedly placed him in New York, Oakland, California, and East Atlanta, suggesting further unapproved travel. Think about the catch-22 this young King was trapped in. He's finally making it, getting booked for shows in major cities, building his fan base, and securing his bag. But every step towards success was technically a violation of his probation. On top of that, King tested positive for marijuana use in 2015 and 2016, which was another strike against him. The frustration was real when Breezy had to make that drive to face the music in Iowa. In a now-deleted Facebook post, post, King expressed his anger about the situation, noting that his supervising probation officer in Chicago hadn't reported the violations, but Iowa officials had stepped in after 5 years. He wrote, "This long-ass drive to Waterloo, I'm about to walk in court on straight asshole mode, cause if I've been violating for traveling, that mean I'm violating coming to court. And the crazy part, my supervising PO in Chicago didn't violate me. Iowa did. After 5 years now, Iowa wanna all of a sudden step in. Here was a young man who had been grinding, building something legitimate, staying out of trouble, and supporting his family through his music. But the system wasn't interested in his growth or his potential. They were interested in making an example out of him. The same success that should have been celebrated was about to become the evidence used against him." As Breezy made that long drive to Iowa, knowing that his freedom and his future hung in the balance, he couldn't have imagined how dramatically his life was about to change. The courtroom he was about to enter would become the scene of one of the most controversial sentences in recent memory, and the reverberations would be felt throughout the hip-hop community. The stage was set for a legal battle that would test not just Breezy's resolve, but the loyalty of everyone who claimed to have his back, including his famous friend from Toronto. When keeping it real goes wrong. June 2nd, 2017 was supposed to be the day 600. Breezy finally closed the book on his legal troubles and stepped fully into his destiny as a rising star in the rap game. Instead, it became the day the system showed him, and everybody watching, that there are two different types of justice in America. One for those with privilege, and another for young black men from the hood who dare to dream bigger than their circumstances. When Breezy walked into that Waterloo, Iowa courtroom, he thought he was dealing with a routine probation hearing, maybe a slap on the wrist, maybe some additional restrictions, but nothing that would derail the momentum he'd been building. Judge Andrea Dreyer had different plans. She found that King had violated the terms of his probation, primarily due to unauthorized travel and marijuana use, and dropped the hammer, revoking his probation and imposing the original 10-year prison sentence from his 2012 conviction. 10 years for traveling to perform music and smoking weed. Let that sink in for a minute. The news hit the hood like a drive-by shooting. King's mother, Renita King, was the one who had to break the devastating news to the world. On Facebook, "Iowa just locked up Antonio Valentino King for 10 years. This is the worst birthday of my life. A mother's pain, raw and unfiltered, posted for the world to see because she needed people to know what had just happened to her son." But Breezy wasn't going out quiet. Even from behind bars, his voice carried that same defiant energy that had made him a star in the first place. In a phone call from the county that spread through the streets like wildfire, you could hear both his pain and his determination.
"Hey, look, man, they played me, man, but they can't hold me forever, man. I don't got no 10 years, man. I'm looking at a year left."
This wasn't just wishful thinking. This was a man who understood something that the media and his critics didn't. He knew he had an ace up his sleeve that most defendants don't have access to, real loyalty from someone with real power.
Shout out to my big brother Drake. He got any lawyer in the city and his country on my side, man. 600 cartel, this shit has never died down, man.
See, when the going gets tough, you find out who your real ones are. And Drake proved he was more than just an industry connection. He was a genuine friend who was willing to put his money where his mouth was. A leaked text message attributed to Drake revealed the depth of his commitment. They took him in, revoked his probation, and gave him 10 years. He won't have to do it, but basically lock him up for smoking weed and being black. Drake's team made it clear they would assist in securing top-tier legal representation, showing the kind of loyalty that's rare in the music industry. But Drake's support also highlighted the racial dynamics at play in this case. The leaked text message from someone on King's team claimed the violation was for smoking weed and being black, suggesting racial bias in the enforcement. While this couldn't be proven in court, it reflected what many people in the community were thinking, that Breezy was being made an example of precisely because he was a successful young black man who refused to distance himself from his roots. But his confidence about beating the case wasn't just based on having good lawyers. It was based on understanding how the system really works when you have the right connections and resources.
Breezy ain't got no 10 years, man. I'll be back on the streets 10 months or less. So you better turn up, man.
This prediction would turn out to be remarkably accurate, proving that Breezy understood the game better than most people gave him credit for. In February 2018, King's attorney, Tina Muhammad, filed a motion to reconsider the sentence, arguing that King was a contributing member of society due to his successful music career. The motion was successful, and King was released from prison on December 12, 2018, after serving less than a year. But freedom doesn't mean the target comes off your back, especially when you're a young black man with a criminal record trying to make it in America. The pattern of harassment would continue. showing that the system wasn't done with 600 Breezy, not by a long shot. What's particularly damaging is how 600 Breezy's own words and actions over the years have created a comprehensive record that prosecutors can use to build their case.
He been in the newspaper for XXX, allegedly having something to do with that, which I doubt. I testified that he ain't did no shit like that. But he been in a lot of cases that's open, that's big, like the XXX is big. So, you know, he known.
The reference to being connected to multiple high-profile cases, even if just through media speculation, demonstrates how 600 Breezy's name has been consistently linked to serious criminal activity. This pattern of being known and connected to a lot of cases that's open is exactly what prosecutors look for when building RICO cases. They don't need to prove that someone committed every crime they investigate. They just need to show that the person was part of an organization that committed crimes and that they benefited from or participated in the broader criminal enterprise. The complexity of 600 Breezy's legal situation becomes even more apparent when we consider his history of making statements that could be interpreted as admissions of criminal activity. The shock expressed by observers when RICO charges are mentioned reflects just how serious these allegations are and how they represent a potential life sentence for someone with 600 Breezy's criminal history. The pattern of behavior that prosecutors would likely focus on goes back years and includes not just criminal activities, but also the organizational structure that enabled those activities. Even seemingly innocent shout-outs to incarcerated associates demonstrate the kind of organizational loyalty and structure that prosecutors use to prove the existence of a criminal enterprise. The most damaging aspect of 600 Breezy's case might be how his artistic success and mainstream connections actually strengthened the prosecution's argument rather than helping his defense. This kind of confidence in beating the charges, combined with references to ongoing organizational activities, plays directly into prosecutorial narratives about defendants who see themselves as above the law. The Drake connection, which 600 Breezy has repeatedly referenced as a source of legal and financial support, might actually work against him in a RICO case. While having high-profile supporters might help with legal representation, it also suggests that the alleged criminal organization had access to significant resources and mainstream legitimacy. What makes this case potentially career-ending for 600 Breezy is not just the possible RICO charges, but the cumulative effect of his entire criminal history. His pattern of legal troubles, including the 2012 drug arrest, the 2017 probation violation, multiple arrests in Alabama and Iowa, and now the Pennsylvania charges, creates a timeline that prosecutors can use to argue that he has been a career criminal who happened to become famous rather than a rapper who got caught up in occasional legal troubles. The fact that he was arrested during what appeared to be a routine traffic stop suggests that law enforcement agencies have been monitoring him closely, waiting for any opportunity to execute outstanding warrants. This level of surveillance typically indicates that he was already the target of a significant investigation, possibly involving wiretaps, financial records analysis, and coordination between multiple law enforcement agencies. The sealed nature of the Pennsylvania charges means that 600 Breezy's legal team is walking into court essentially blind, unable to prepare a comprehensive defense strategy until they know exactly what they're fighting. This disadvantage is particularly significant in RICO cases, which often involve complex conspiracies with multiple defendants and years of alleged criminal activity.
Because I'm thinking it's something him riding around with a gun. They said at Damo funeral, you know, he was showing guns, or I don't know if he was showing guns to Lil Zay.
This analysis reveals how interconnected these various conflicts and criminal allegations are, creating a web of evidence that prosecutors can use to demonstrate ongoing criminal enterprise activity. The reference to showing guns at funerals and ongoing conflicts with other rappers illustrates how 600 Breezy's public behavior consistently reinforced the prosecution's likely narrative that he was an active participant in a violent criminal organization. Every public display of weapons, every social media threat, every association with other alleged criminals becomes another piece of evidence in the broader RICO puzzle. As 600 Breezy awaits extradition to Pennsylvania, the gravity of his situation becomes clear. This isn't just another arrest that he can beat with good lawyers and celebrity connections. If the RICO speculation is accurate, he's facing the kind of comprehensive prosecution that has successfully dismantled other criminal organizations and sent their leaders away for decades. For a man who once confidently declared that he would be back on the streets in 10 months or less, the reality of facing potential RICO charges represents a sobering confrontation with the consequences of a lifetime spent balancing authenticity with criminal liability. The boy from Chicago's South Side who became famous for keeping it real may have finally discovered that in the eyes of federal prosecutors, being too real can cost you everything. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: 600 Breezy's arrest represents the end of an era in drill music, a final reckoning for a generation of artists who built their careers on the dangerous intersection of street credibility and mainstream success. Whether he emerges from this legal battle with his freedom intact remains to be seen, but the game that made him famous has clearly changed forever. Aight, thanks for rocking with me. If you thought this video was wild, make sure you peep those other bangers showing up on your screen right now. They're just as fire, no cap. I'll catch you in the next video. Stay woke.